What's going on, everyone, and thanks for joining me for another great conversation. As always, I appreciate you guys. My next guest is such a powerhouse here in my local town of Worcester, which has been a trend on this podcast lately. She's an artist, she's a community organizer, and founder and creative director of El Salón, which is an incredible hub for creators to be able to show and unleash their powers. I introduce to you the incredibly smart and the incredibly forward-thinking Vanessa Calixto. Vanessa, thank you so much for giving me your time. You come high regarded. Jasmine spoke highly of you.
Oh my goodness.
Fernando was here, and he spoke highly of you. And I can't help but go through your Instagram stream and El Salón's Instagram stream and just be inspired.
Oh my.
So thank you for coming down. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. It's so weird to hear such beautiful and positive things about yourself. So
yeah,
but I appreciate it very much.
Oh, thanks.
I'm glad.
I find that, and I'm Puerto Rican.
I'm Salvadorian.
El Salvadorian. Why is it, and this is getting right into it, but why is it that we feel this way, that we can't get good praise? And I was talking to Jasmine about this, and I want to keep bringing Jasmine up, but it kind of feels like I feel the same way. Like no matter what I do, when somebody says something real cool about me, it's like naturally built in for me to be like, nah, it's not true. They're lying to me. I'm not that good.
Yeah.
What is it?
I don't know. I feel like for me, I think of like my people, and I feel like somos gente humilde. We're very like humble.
True.
And so it's like, I don't know, in our upbringing, at least for me, it just feels like it's, I don't know, a way of being that where you don't always maybe hear those positive things.
True.
Which is like a whole other conversation, right? And maybe it's not intentional, but I feel like it's sort of an expectation that you have to like work hard and do all these things, and then you don't always get to hear like the great things in return.
Right.
But
yeah,
it's just weird being able to like hear it.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of like, you should be working hard. You're supposed to be killing yourself, right?
Yeah.
For your family, so we can survive.
Yeah.
But then, so then to hear like positive praise is like very strange.
Yeah, it is. I like to think about it for me as a defense mechanism, right? So it's like if one of my favorite authors is Seth Godin, and he talks a lot about putting yourself on the hook, right? Like you need to put yourself out there, let people see your work and feel it, right? And then I feel that if as a defense mechanism, if I don't put myself on the hook, I can't be hurt.
Yes.
Yeah,
definitely.
So that's my thing.
Yeah. I like even in the beginning when I had returned back to Worcester, and wanting to put myself out there and be out and involved in the community, I would always think like, or like even putting my art on Instagram, I was like, do I really want to do that? That's very vulnerable of me to want to share the things inside my mind, things that I envision and see and put on paper. And then what if people don't like it? What if they reject me? What if they think I'm weird?
Right.
And then I think I got to a point I'm just like, fuck it.
Yeah.
Like,
I think
got
so.
to.
And you got to get to that point, but sometimes it takes people longer than other people.
Oh, yeah.
And it's very scary. I agree. I still go through that weekly. I mean, with these podcasts, with everything that I'm doing. I mean, and the love is there, right? Like my guests come on and they always, high praise. I haven't heard anybody say it's trash.
No.
But I still, like, when I'm working on it, I still feel like, yeah.
Say no to that voice.
I know. It's a resistance that I face, but I think it also makes me push hard. And I think when a lot of people come, because everybody has expectations on certain things, when people come and they see, what they see on Instagram, what I post, and when they come and feel the experience of actually recording and stuff, I think they get blown away most of the time because they're like, wow, look how far this kid goes. In my head, I'm not going far enough. So that's, why when I keep hearing about you and I keep seeing your work and everything that you're doing, I'm like, I'm not doing enough.
No.
I got to keep moving. But I know we jumped in. Let the listeners know about you so they could catch up real quick before we go deeper in the conversation.
Yeah, so my name is Vanessa Calixto, as you've mentioned. I am Worcester born and raised. I am the daughter of Salvadoran immigrant parents. I am a mother also, an artist, community and cultural organizer. And yeah, just a human
That's a
being
lot.
trying to make it.
Yeah. Now, in an elevator pitch, do you say all that, or do you shorten it up and say, "Hey, I'm just a creator"?
No, I don't say all of that. I'll find like a more fun and eclectic way of, saying all of that. But I mean, there have been times when I do introduce myself in many circles where I do say all of those things. Like,
Yeah. And you should. You should. Those are all incredible titles. All right. So you're Worcester native. What part of Worcester, if you don't mind me asking?
I grew up in the south of Worcester, over in Quinsigamond Village.
Okay.
I also spent most of my childhood as well, split between there and like the Piedmont Street area, like on Austin Street. My grandmother lives there.
Yeah, so that's Main South area, right? Is it Main Street? Off of Main Street?
Kind of, like,
yeah.
I would say
It's like between
Crown Hill area.
Okay, yep, gotcha.
That kind of area in between Pleasant Street and Chandler Street.
Yes, gotcha.
So I spent a lot of my time there because my mother worked nights, so I would spend my evenings until my dad would pick me up there.
Gotcha.
So
Nice.
Yeah.
I grew up in Great Brook Valley. I've been here since we came from Puerto Rico. My sister got diagnosed with a condition. We went to her and my dad went to Children's Hospital.
Okay.
And then they kind of my dad kind of paved the way, and then he gave the okay to my mom to say, hey, come, you can bring these guys. And we've been here since. We grew up in the valley, and now I'm over here. What's this? The north side, east side?
No, I think this is the south as well.
Is it?
Yeah.
By the airport? Yeah.
Yeah, because
I'm
South
terrible
High
at
is
that,
over
by the way.
here. So I'm assuming,
That's a solid point.
That's
Duh, Jose.
Totally cool. Worcester's so big.
Yeah, it's true. But the thing is, I have a high school who goes to South, and I never put together South High, South Worcester. It's just. But yeah, that's where I'm at here. So what did you like to do in Worcester? That's tomorrow's episode that's about to air. I talked to the new chair of the Worcester Arts Council, Jennifer Riley, and she was saying about a lot of these opportunities that creators have and stuff like that. You naturally fall into that niche, but what got you there? Like when you were a young girl, how did you get to where you're at now? Was it always like this? Did you learn along the way?
Oh no, I hated Worcester so much
Did
when
you?
I was a young girl. Yeah.
Ouch. I agree, but ouch.
And I say that because I feel like now my feelings have changed.
Okay.
But I grew up here, obviously, went to school here. I actually went to Catholic school my whole life.
Okay.
And so growing up here, my parents were also very protective, as Latino parents are with their girls.
1,000%.
I wasn't allowed to sleep over friends' houses or even go to the mall sometimes. It was just really annoying. And so I always dreamed of venturing out and seeing the world or, getting into trouble or mischief, whatever it was.
Yeah.
Right. And then being in Catholic school, I was always the only Latina in the classrooms.
Really? Okay.
And so that was something else, something in itself.
Yeah, we can get into that after. Yeah, sure.
And so I would always look around me. I'm like, there's nothing for middle schoolers or tweens or teens to do. And even in high school, there was nothing that called to me or that I knew about that was artistic. And art has always been something that I've always done since I was a little girl.
Okay.
And so there wasn't those kinds of programs that I was looking for. And so, the chance I got out of high school going into college, I moved out to Boston, and there I was able to explore and do all the things that I wanted.
Yeah.
But
that's
then
awesome.
Moving back here to Worcester, I think it was 2012. I had my son, and so I was back with my family again. One of the best things ever, but also I was like, damn, I'm back here again. I don't want to be here. I miss the city, the opportunities there, the creative people. And so I sat in that for a little while, I'm not happy here. I have so much energy and so many ideas, but I don't know anyone who's going to listen to me. I have no experience or anything backing me up, right?
Sure.
Except my ideas. But then slowly but surely I started, making community or creating community with other people that I knew, became friends with, colleagues, volunteering a lot. And then from then on, I was something sparked in me. I was I can make my own opportunities here.
Yeah.
I can make Worcester what I want it to be.
That's awesome.
To fulfill the need that I have, the desire and the fire that I have to live creatively. And so from then on, I think it was a couple years back, I was no, I'm not going to be upset that I'm here. I made something out of it that makes me happy. So
that's incredible. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with you. And the reason I brought up Jennifer Riley was because of that, because I told her, I was like, none of these arts program existed when I was growing up.
No.
And if they did, maybe, I was in public schools, but maybe it was just my circle wasn't exposed to these programs.
Yeah.
It was a very strange feeling, and she couldn't answer the question. I don't even think she was that well versed in the history of, what Worcester was doing.
Mm-hmm.
But I have found recently, and doing small research, because I got little kids, I got young ones, and I'm trying to get them into extra stuff that, now there's a ton going on.
Yeah, there's so many things.
But I didn't know that before. And I kind of felt like I was in this like black hole here, like where it's like, I'm creative, I'm trying to do this podcast. So for a long time, earlier in the podcast, people would notice I would kind of either have like either people I knew, like family members, or I would get people that are not even from Worcester.
Yeah.
Like I'll be talking to, like, I talked to a guy in England, and it was cool. It's a great experience to talk to those people as well. But lately I've been in the groove of like, well, what's happening in town?
Yeah.
And then I meet people such as yourself and Fernando, and I'm just like, there's a lot of action going on here, and I want to plug myself into it.
Yeah.
So do you recall, like you said, you were creating communities. Do you think that happened more than Worcester making it happen? Does that make sense? That's a weird question, right? Like, do you think it was more like the community said, the hell with it, if Worcester's not going to do it, we're going to do it? Or do you think Worcester just started to pay attention to the arts?
No, I think the first thing that you said, I think a lot of us were just like, to hell with it. Like, we're going to make our own events and, have our own celebrations of ourselves and one another.
Right.
Because, again, like, growing up, there wasn't any of those programs or things going on.
Yeah.
And like I did go to Catholic school, but my mom was barely making it by, trying to like pay for me to go there, and let alone like paying for me to go to like the Worcester Art Museum for classes or like guitar classes somewhere else. Like we couldn't afford those things.
I'm with it. We couldn't either.
Yeah. So like that, I had that one little privilege of going to Catholic school, but it was hard to like provide. And so, the most I was able to do is just sit at home and draw, and like that's what, and then the internet was like a thing.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
So you're exposed to all of those things, but I think my experience might be true to so many others as well, and where people probably, they see that now with the internet, now with the beautiful community that we have, that we can build exactly what we need without the resources. Like resources would be great, right?
Yeah, right.
They would they would help out so much, but we don't always need that. Like as long as like we're together and we're able to be in a space where we can create and be with one another, I think that's exactly what was needed.
Yeah.
Especially for the people of color here in Worcester.
Right. Power numbers.
Yes.
Yes.
Definitely.
That's huge. Yeah. And then, then the leadership, government, whatever you want to call it, they have no choice but to tag along.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, and then they try to plug themselves in. Like, we've been here this whole time.
Oh, yeah,
it's like,
yeah. I think, like the social justice movements and like, us creating these spaces and them seeing like, oh, wow, like, they're doing really cool things, and we should be diversifying our X, Y, and Z's and making space for them, and diversity and inclusion. But I
hate that. It's so smoke and mirrors, right? Like you could tell they're lying through their teeth. And I don't want to go deep down that end because there is humble people in leadership.
Yes, there is.
But for the most part, it kind of feels like I said, you guys...
We've been here.
Yeah, and you guys weren't paying attention for a very long time.
And so we had to
beat your door down.
Yeah.
And that's awesome to even think about. Now, I want to go back a little bit to the Catholic experience and being around, because I like to tell people that I didn't notice, I guess oppression would be the best word, but I didn't notice the difference that I was facing compared to, let's say, to what a privileged person was facing, right? So I couldn't go to Catholic school.
Yeah.
What did you see from that end, being in there, but knowing that your mom was struggling when your peers were like paid, right? Like I got a nephew right now who goes to, I'm probably going to kill this, but Bancroft. It's a private school.
Oh, yeah, that's expensive school.
Yeah, and same thing. My sister busted her butt to get him through it, and he's doing fantastic. Shout out to him. I think he's a listener. But I've always wondered that. Like, how was the experience from that?
Oh, it's definitely like, sometimes it feels like an out-of-body experience. Looking back at it now as an adult, imposter syndrome is real.
Oh, yeah.
And so I never knew I was experiencing that. I never knew what that was.
Yeah.
And as a young child being in those spaces, I don't know that you realize early on, but definitely like in middle school and stuff, I would look around and I would see that I was the only person of color, the only person who spoke a different language, and I looked different from the other girls.
Sure.
I'm not, you're of European descent or Anglo-Saxon
Sure.
or whatever.
You can say white and blue eyes. That's fine.
I was not blonde hair, blue eyed.
Can we get this a little closer to you? Just.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, just
Sorry
a little.
about that.
No, you're good. I just want to make sure. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I was not blonde hair, blue eyed.
Yeah.
That was something in itself as a young lady growing up.
Yeah.
And going through puberty, and that like I would look around and I would just feel horrible about myself and be like, I don't look like them. Like I'm ugly. One, two, I'm different because I don't have lots of money, and like a lot of them were working class families, and shout out to their parents as well for putting them through school. But like I didn't have those privileges that they had, and me being there in itself was a privilege, but it was something, sometimes I would be pulled out of class because my mom didn't make a payment, and they'd have to wait until she'd make a payment to let me be back in class, and that was in high school.
What a shitty
that
system
was
that
in
is.
high school, yeah. And so like my mother would have to borrow money from my grandmother, and it wasn't easy. I did gain a lot of things that maybe public schools don't provide, but it was definitely a very strange experience. Like I hated high school. It was miserable, and I would have moments where I would be over friends' houses, and they would be like to their parents, "Oh, like, she's the good kind of Spanish mom.
Oh.
She's not Puerto Rican."
Wow.
Crazy shit like that.
Yeah.
And I think I was in middle school when I first heard that.
Did you notice? Did it hit you right away?
It hit me weird, and I didn't fully understand like this, and I was like, "This kind of fucked up."
Super fucked up.
Like.
Yeah.
And obviously it made an impact because I carry it with me to this day.
Right. That kind of hit me. I'm Puerto Rican.
Yeah. But like things like that, like those,
fun,
that stuff exists. And people to say that, like racism doesn't exist or whatever, like it still does. And it can be as subtle or as loud.
Yeah. Sure. It could be direct or it could be indirect.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people don't know either. I didn't find out that I was being treated any different until later on in my life when I got an adult, right? Because I lived, let's just say I was distracted. I was in the streets, I was in public schools, I was doing all that stuff, and I was never able to figure out, well, damn, well, why is it hard for me? Oh, damn, or why can't I seem to succeed? Or damn, why do when I show up, they try to put me in some type of specials class or something like that.
Yeah.
It was just very strange. And I've always been what I would consider an aware kid, right? Like smart. I was always into my books and stuff like that. So it was always strange to me that I would get there, and without them knowing me for more than a week, they were able to say, "Oh, well, this gentleman deserves to be in special classes." But once again, at the time, I thought it was normal. I was like, "This is just part of life." And then when I became an adult, right, and I started doing my history and I started doing my research, I started to feel that racism is a thing. But I also think that there's a very thin line between racism and victimizing. And it's a tough one because nowadays, especially with the internet, you don't know who's doing what. Because there's people that can ride on people's pain to self-glorify themselves when they're not really seeing that pain.
Yeah.
So how do you find it? Do you think it's legit black or white, like it's racist or it's not? Or do you think it's just one of those blurry things that depends on the context?
I don't think that it's blurry. I think that either...
It's pretty overt?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think, like you're racist or you're not, and like maybe you don't know it and you're unconscious to it.
Also the case, yeah.
And like in those cases I feel like it's okay, but we have to do the work in order to realize what are we doing wrong, how can we better ourselves, how can we heal so that we're not being hurtful to those around us.
Right.
And
be empathetic.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I definitely think that it's you aren't, and sometimes it is unconscious, but once you find out, then you got to do the work.
You got to do something about it.
You got to do something about it.
It's that old thing of being able to call out bullshit, right?
Exactly. And like Latinos are not exempt from that because like that exists for us too.
Like within each other.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like the Dominicans and the Puerto Ricans, and it's like, wait a minute, we're from like 100 miles apart.
Oh yeah, definitely. So it's
That's
universal.
always been strange. Yeah. But I also, it's just the human, the human condition is what I call it. This sounds very weird, and some people agree with me, and some people are just like, "What is he talking about?" But I really just think we're just flawed monkeys. Like I don't try to overcomplicate things, right?
Yeah.
Like people will come to the table and well, it's because historically women have done this, or historically black people have done this, and I'm like, we're just really strange monkeys that get to think rationally, and it's bad for us. I think
That's really funny.
Yeah. I just think it's and we don't. And if most people would simplify things to that, to like, hey, maybe I'm just being an animal right now, and not being a human being, a lot more problems would be solved. But I don't know if it's black and white. I disagree with you in that, but I do think that when it's obvious, it's obvious. Like I think you should be able to call out bullshit, and, and be like, well, wait a minute, that was racist as hell.
Yeah.
And not try to lie to yourself and say, well, that wasn't really racist. But it's tough. For me, it is at least. Because I know some people that I grew up with, and sometimes they would do something that when we grew up was not racist, right? And then I have the struggle of like, this is gonna sound terrible. I'm not even gonna say the word because it's terrible. But when we would get Chinese food, I grew up in the projects, we would call it a certain slang food. I'm not gonna say it because it is. But back then it was pretty normal. Like I mean, we have Asian friends that were saying the same exact thing, and we were hanging out with these guys. Long story short, when I get older now, it's like,
you can't say that.
Don't say that. Like you could get hurt for saying that.
And so like we do these things and we didn't realize, or we don't realize that they're not okay. But then once you learn and you're like, oh no, that is not okay. So
that's when the work comes in.
That's when the work comes in. And you're, like that's an example in itself. You're doing the work to like change that.
Yeah, because I don't want to call my friends racist. I don't feel they are at least. I just feel like they just grew up when I grew up, and things were able to say. Also with the N-word, same thing. Yeah. Sometimes I slip, and it's like, first of all, I'm of the culture, right? Like I grew up in the culture, so it's not to say that I have a pass to say the word. It's that was every other word when I was growing up. Yeah. So I slip up every now and then, and I could clean up my language, but I have gotten in a situation where I slip up and I get the look. Yeah. Like, don't say that. Yeah. And I would think I'm far from racist. Yeah. But it's hard to explain to somebody, no. Listen, I'm of the culture, right? Like, this is just how we talk. They don't care. They're just like, I think there's
definitely many degrees to it. There's definitely, like many layers.
Weird monkeys.
It's not easy. It's complicated.
It is. I'm just being a dummy, but but putting the work, I agree with you overall. Like whatever this may be, that may be, it always comes down to
we gotta educate ourselves.
In the past too. I'm a very big advocate on maybe it's because I, quote unquote have trust issues, but I find history to give me comfort. Because I feel those people had no interest. First of all, they didn't know you were going to exist. Yeah. But they have no interest. Their estate makes no money off of you. There's no sale when they're giving you this wisdom and giving you this information. Yeah. As opposed to now, everybody's a pro. Everybody's a guru. Everybody's this. So I try to stay away from a lot of people in that situation because of trust issues. Yeah. And I like to see my answers, and that's where I get my education from.
Yeah. My dad would always say, learn from other people's sorry, let me say that again.
Sure.
My dad would always say, learn from other people's mistakes.
Absolutely.
And I would always carry that with me. I wouldn't always do that. But
I'm with you. But that's priceless advice, right? Yeah. And I like to take that. Well, he probably meant the same thing, but not only in the present when you see people fall on their face. But in the past, like there's good examples to live and to practice, and then there's bad examples.
From the beginning of time. Oh yeah.
Right. So I'm deep into the books. That's my thing. I practice Stoicism. I grew up in Christian in that background. I did my first communion. I did all that stuff. But eventually it came to the age where my parents were like, you don't have to do that. Like, you can. Like, we're going. Like, it's Sunday. You can come, but you don't have to. That's the day I considered where I went down the rabbit hole. Right? That's when I was like, wait a minute, you're giving me a green
I don't
pass?
have to do this?
Yes. And I went down the rabbit hole. And now I'm not religious per se, but I do feel that us humans need something to hang our coats on, especially because life is extremely hard. So to me, it's the philosophy of Stoicism. And for the same reasons that I kind of hinted on, is that these guys, they worked very hard on asking themselves tough questions and living their life. And they just wrote about it in journals and stuff like that, which I do a journal every day. And thousands and thousands of years later, here's Jose reading something from an emperor king, and extracting it and putting it in his life and getting awesome benefit from it. And if I would have found that online, I would have had to pay 2 easy payments of $9.99.
Yeah.
So it's that type of thing. But anyways, so what do you got going on now? So you got El Salón, right?
Yes, I have El Salón.
Is that your main project?
That's my main project right now.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah. So El Salón is a collective of artists that
I love the name, by the way.
Thank you.
So cool.
A collective of artists that create intentional and inclusive spaces for other BIPOC artists and creatives. Here in Worcester, and we got our start. I like to say it was conceived way before it was born.
Okay.
But I also like to say that it was born at the bridge. Okay. They gave me the opportunity to really just be able to bring it into fruition.
Yeah.
So it was a project that, thanks to the bridge, I was able to bring to life here in Worcester. And so between El Salón and the bridge, those are like besides my regular 9 to 5 and being a mom, that's what keeps me really busy.
Yeah. So how did the bridge connection happen? Did you just walk in there one day, or did you connect to somebody?
Basically. So, okay. I think it must have been like on a weekend. I was like calling my friends. Shout out to Jacob and Frankie.
Shout out.
I was I think I was like, what are you guys doing? Like, where are you? And they're like, oh, we're at 300 South Bridge Street. Come through. Yeah. And I was like, what are they doing there? And I get there and I'm like, they're here. My family, we call it La Trapera.
Okay.
My grandma used to work there.
Is that the flea market?
When it was La Trapera.
Okay.
It wasn't a flea market, but it was kind of, you know how like at Salvation Army, they sort through the clothes and they whatever with it. Yeah. That's what they used to do at some point in the 90s there.
Okay,
and my grandma used to work there. So I was like, I rolled up and I was like, why are they here? What's going on? And I love old abandoned buildings or just old buildings in general. It's something I could Google and go down the rabbit hole about a building on the internet for hours. I don't know why. Some weird thing I do. But I was like,
that's dope.
Yeah, I was excited. I was like, oh, it's in here. So you go in and I was like, wow, this place is crazy. Like, it's amazing. And they were just like sweeping and cleaning and helping our friend Dan, who's the property manager there, like move things around. And I went there a couple times. And then one day, just joking around with my friend Jacob, we had been talking about how we wanted to have an art exhibit that was also a rave, like an underground rave.
Wow, nice.
And then I was like, looking around, I was like, we could do it here. Like, this is the perfect place for it. I don't know if you've been there.
Not inside. I've been outside. Yeah.
Inside, it's pretty, like, dungeness and, like, very grungy and cool.
It looks like it outside, too.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah.
And so that's how that idea came about. And I was like, we can raise money for this place so that we can, like, make repairs and continue to use it. And before I knew it, that's what was happening.
Yeah.
And ever since then, we've been having many different events there through El Salón and through other groups in the community that have come and wanted to use the space as well. We've opened the doors to many different groups to come in and just make a space for themselves there and invite others in the community to be a part of the story being told. So it's been It's been amazing. Wild ride.
Yeah, see, and I feel like I'm just missing this whole thing. I'll tell you, I grew up in Worcester, and I mean, I'm stuck on my 9 to 5. I mean, I got 4 kids, but me and my wife are always stuck on, what do we get these kids to do? Yeah. Like, we're trying to get them out. We're trying to not have them fall victim to, like, the YouTubes of the world. But it's so hard.
It is. Yeah. I know.
And then we're finding so much out about, my stepson and, how he feels and how he carries himself. And I don't want to dox him, but I'm sure you get the gist. And we're trying to find just a proper, safe place for not only him as a teenager to be, but for my little about to be 10-year-old. I mean, she's into theater. She records herself all the time. She likes to do this stuff. But I only see the whitey stuff. Yeah. I'm sorry, I don't want to say. Shout out to my white people. I love you, white people. But like Hanover Theater, which is fantastic, but it's not cost efficient. That's cool.
It's not me. Oh, or maybe it is me.
It might be. Can't tell with these headphones.
Oh, I might have it on. Let me turn it off.
Oh yeah, no worries about it. No, you're good. That's why it's not live. We're good. It might be me too, but.
It was my mother. All right, cool. What was the question?
Yeah, no. What I was saying is that
we were talking about Hanover.
Yeah, I could only find that stuff, and I mean, listen, I do well.
It's not accessible.
Thank you. You were about to make me put all my banking information on and tell you how my debit card works and how my it's not accessible.
Yeah. And like the programs are really cool, and it's a beautiful thing that they're doing. And the place, you know, these places have amazing equipment and you know, all of that. But you know, for a low-income family,
it's tough.
It's not, you know, it's tough.
Yeah, and then the seating too. It seems like they like open up and then everybody just comes in and wipes it out. And I can't get my daughter in to any of these Hanover ones. And I don't know what Plan B is. I don't know what's happening in Worcester. I don't know, like, but I do want to take advantage of. She watched Hamilton a little while ago.
Okay.
So she fell in love with Hamilton. We watched it together, and since then she does like musical videos and stuff, and that's her favorite thing. But then once again, I'm like, where in Worcester could this girl take advantage? And I can't figure it out.
I know Main Idea.
What's that Main Idea?
Main Idea is a really awesome program that serves Maine South, and I think this is considered Maine South.
I don't know. This is Main Street, but I don't know how far it goes out to. But
they do arts programming for Maine South youth, which is like visual arts, theater, and dance, and they do music as well.
Gotcha.
So you should look into that.
Look into that,
Shout out to Joy Murrieta, who is the ED of Main Idea.
Okay.
And they're going to be doing a couple cool things this summer.
Sweet.
Free for the community.
So there is hope.
There is hope. Yeah, you definitely want to nurture that. You know, like I think of me as a 10-year-old little girl, and I was I was so into dance and musical theater.
Yeah.
I used to.
That's my next question, actually. Yeah. How has it changed your life as a female and the arts and stuff? But go ahead. You're going down that road.
I was so into dance and musical theater, and I loved watching all of, you know, like all the musicals and stuff. And acting and art, visual arts were something that were always very important to me. And I wish, you know, if my family had you know, the resources to pay for me to continue those passions. You know, I feel like I would have been able to do so much more with that. And so I think it's important that you recognize that this is something your daughter loves. This is a passion that she has right now. So as parents, I think it's important for us to be able to recognize those things and find the ways to nurture and cultivate that passion.
Absolutely.
My son is obsessed with, he's always drawing. He's always drawing. He's always singing. He's shy about the singing. But he's proud about his drawing.
But he got it.
He's making comic books. He does everything. He wakes up. That's the first thing he does.
We got to get these two together.
He finds his microphone and he gets his sketch pad, and that's what he's doing. And so, like, I want to make sure that I'm doing everything I can so that he is not insecure about his talents like I was. I think of that 10-year-old little girl. Mom and dad worked super hard, and they gave me everything that they could, but they couldn't do all of the extra things, and that's okay. But I know that now because of their hard work, I'm in the position where I can pay attention to those things that my son loves.
That's incredible, and for them to understand their self-worth, like, especially as, you know, being Hispanic, right, being Latin background. We were talking to my daughter the other way because she has, as you saw, very curly hair. And she, you know, I don't think she notices yet, like, hey, you know, my friend's hair is not like mine. But she definitely says, like, why do I have to have this much hair, and why does it got to be? And, you know, we were talking to her, and we were telling her, you know, like, to embrace it, that it's beautiful. You know, when her mom goes out, she does a good job of, like, leaving it down and stuff like that, which, as a guy, I don't pay attention to that stuff like that. But I love how my wife, as a Puerto Rican woman herself, could, like, you know, now pass that on to her daughter and let her know, hey, you know, that's beautiful hair. That's not, you know, and those are beautiful eyes, and you're a beautiful girl, and you're a Spanish girl. And I'm so glad that Worcester now, with the stuff you got going on, and people like you are now paying attention to these kids.
Yeah, definitely.
I call it a good distraction. When I was growing up, my distraction was the streets. My distraction was, you know, the typical stuff, the ladies, the blah 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 blah, right? My Timberland boots. You know, those are the things, and I don't want that for my kids, and I want to give them good distractions. And good distraction would be well, you won't be paying attention to the streets if you're busy, if you're living out your dream, if you're acting, if you're doing all this stuff.
Definitely.
So I want to go back to the bridge, and I want to go back to El Salón, because they were a big part of El Salón, but now they're in trouble, right? Is that still the case? I haven't updated myself since a few weeks ago, but they're still trying to get the funding. Can you talk to the listeners about that a little bit?
Yes. So recently, I think it's been like, oh my goodness, time has flown by really, really fast in the past few weeks, it feels like. But I think it's been like 3 or 4 weeks now since we always meet as a board, Save the Bridge board, on Mondays, and we were together. And then one day, Dan let us know that he had gotten a call from the owner of the building. And he's a really good friend with the owner. They grew up together.
Okay. I didn't know that part.
Yeah. And so that's how, like, Dan is kind of in the building, you know, like he takes care of the building for the owner.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he's a property manager. He takes care of it, whatever.
Sure.
And in return, I guess, like, or not in return, but Ben has allowed for Dan to, like, have his programming that he used to do called Crash Course Creations in there, where he taught youth how to fix and build cars from scratch, and then they're able to, like, sell it or keep it, whatever the case may be. And so we're in there because of Dan, and so we've done so many events. And at the board meeting, like, I'm going back to that, at the board meeting, he told us how he got that call and how the owner had said that they were going to go through with a deal. And so we would have to vacate sometime soon. And so Dan tried to talk it out with him. It was a lot of phone calls back and forth for him to be able to get the owner to agree to letting us try to make up close to $1 million.
That's insane.
So that he could give it to us versus this developer that's coming in and is probably going to turn it into a parking lot or condos. I don't know. I keep hearing different things.
Condos, probably.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but it's always a condo. I don't know why.
Yeah. That's exactly what we need, right? In the city of Worcester, more condos.
Yeah, right. I can't afford to be in one, but sure.
So that happened, and that was mind-blowing because here we are trying to get together to plan for the nice months that are coming up, you know, the summertime, because it gets extremely cold in there. There is no heating. So in the winter, we can't do anything. So all we have is the nice spring months and the summer months. And so, you know, we're trying to make a plan and we've been meeting for months on Mondays, you know, trying to organize and get ourselves together to be able to, like, apply for grants or, you know, whatever the case may be, so that we can somehow be able to secure a little piece of this building. And so that happens, and we panic. We're like, what do we do?
Imagine, like a slap in the face.
Oh, yeah. And we've built so much community around this building. That it was just super daunting. And you know, El Salón wouldn't be able to have done so many radical things that it has done if it wasn't for that building, for the bridge. Because what other space was I going to be able to do along with my friends, these different types of events that brings people together, that wasn't going to charge me an arm and a leg
to do so.
You know. And here is this building that's just sitting here empty, literally collecting dust every single day, and we were able to do that there. And I had I was able to meet the owner at one point after the first event, and I was caught off guard. Dan was like, "Oh, he's here. You have to meet him." And I was like, "Oh my gosh!" I was so nervous because I was like, "Here's this man who owns this building. Like, he probably doesn't want us doing things in here." And I was so scared. And then he told me, he was like, "Wow, I love what you did to the place. Like, keep doing this." And I was like, "Oh wow, this is really cool." Like, he doesn't care, and he likes that we're doing this. But then we always knew that was a possibility. That at any point
it could go away.
Yeah, it could go away. And I think that we never really, at least for me, I never really wanted to think that far ahead or really believe it. I'm always very optimistic. And so I never expected it to come when it did. And and COVID took a whole year from us.
Yeah.
We did things here and there as much as we could, but COVID stole a whole year from us. So
Everything from so how's it going so far? And then the second question to that would be is why isn't the city of Worcester coming in to help? Or do you even know the answer to that?
Oh, I don't even know the answer to that.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
But I know that they have been in conversations with them. But I think what it is that because it's a private deal with this developer, nobody can really do anything about it. Yeah. But I mean, I don't know anything else besides that. I don't know.
Right. And how's it going? Are you guys close to the goal? Are you far away from the goal? Or?
I think we're not close to the goal.
Yeah, I mean, a million. Hard. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, last time I checked, I think we had about 50,000 or so. I might be wrong.
That's still fantastic. Right?
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of money.
That's a huge amount of money.
You know, and 2-3 weeks to make that money.
Yeah.
I never thought that's 5 down payments on a house.
Yeah. I didn't think about it that way, but yeah.
The community came together and donated and fought for it. It was so mind-blowing to me that the city of Worcester's residents and people outside of Worcester too see value in this. It's not just the building. Right. It's the mission and vision that, comes from it and from the people that have been here organizing. Right. And the fact that they see value and they're donating money, they're donating their time and services, their artwork, everything. It's crazy to me. And I'm like, this is what the people want.
Yeah, which is why I ask about Worcester, because it's this is a win for you, especially, and I hate to go here, but they're all about that, especially on a political level. I mean, when you're going to go up for re-election and you come and say, hey, well, I saved the bridge, not you personally, but the city saved the bridge, and it's because we care about the youth and we care about X, Y, Z, or whatever, that's going to look good for Worcester.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, and this is just being blunt, they got a new baseball stadium.
Yeah.
And I think they want to put some condominiums.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
this sucks.
And we knew that was going to happen, right?
Yeah,
the baseball stadium's there. That whole neighborhood's going to shift.
Yeah.
And the people that have been living there for, X amount of years and have grown up there, eventually they're going to get pushed out.
Right.
Because, people see the value in having a ballpark right in their backyard, because then they can up the rent. They can redo, the 3-deckers, make them look nicer and charge more.
Yeah.
And then the people that are there,
the income that's coming in because of this is huge.
Can't afford it. Yeah.
And you're either on two sides of that. You either, own homes and can benefit because the city of Worcester will pay for it, or they'll pay you out or whatever, or you're renting, they come in, they tell you got to get the hell out of here, and then you got to struggle to find where to go. And I think that's just cutthroat, city life or city politics. But this is a good situation for them to come in and do something huge for so many people.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying they have to put up 1 million, but you can make that target a little closer, right? And you could promote it more. You could use your power as a city to make your guys' strength strong. I don't know the answer to that either, but I'm sure it's a weird answer, even if there's
it's definitely a complicated answer for sure.
Yeah. So let's talk about El Salón. So, if the bridge goes, what happens to El Salón?
I haven't even let myself to even
good for you
go there.
Yeah, good for you. But you guys moved, right? The residency?
So, I mean...
or that doesn't count?
No.
I thought it was a move. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, it's not a move.
Okay.
But it's just it's a really awesome opportunity that we were given, where we're able to use the JMAC facility, which is their front gallery, and then the Brick Box Theater, which they have in the back, for 8 weeks.
Oh, nice.
So we were, the call was for people to apply and propose a project that they wanted to do to win that residency. Yeah. And so me and my friends that are a part of the El Salón board came together, and we put something together that is pretty ambitious, I think.
Yeah.
But we wouldn't be ourselves if we weren't trying to be crazy and ambitious. But
can you give examples of the ambition, or you want to keep it on the low?
Keep it on the low.
Gotcha.
You gotta stick around and watch and come by.
I got my eyes peeled. That's it.
But one of the things that we will be doing, of course, is an art exhibit that will kick off the events, the many events that will be happening, and so. We have 8 weeks to do what we want in there. And so cool. I'm very excited about that. But El Salón, the way it has been designed, is for it can be housed anywhere.
Okay. Nice.
It doesn't belong to a particular building or place or city or whatever. It's wherever we are able to create community, right?
Yeah.
So we could be out in the park, we could be inside a building, we could be
So dope.
wherever.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm just pretty stoked about being able to.
So you haven't even thought far ahead, and you shouldn't. You got a lot going on now. No,
Yeah, I mean, there was one moment where I was out with my son, and I think I was like at a red light, and I was thinking about, I had just left the bridge, and I was thinking about driving by there in a few years and it not being there, and me pointing to it and telling my son, do you remember when we used to dance around in there? Or like have really cool events?
Yeah.
And that really hit me, and I was like, okay, I'm not thinking about this anymore. Like, this is off the table.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna let myself go down that road.
Yeah. I'm
gonna continue to fight alongside my community to try to do everything we can to preserve what we've built there.
Yeah.
So, you know, if it does get sold, El Salón's gonna continue on, and we're going to continue being part of the Save the Bridge community, and hopefully we'll find somewhere else to relocate to altogether.
Yeah.
Because the beauty of that place is that there's so many different groups in there, and we all rely on one another and support one another. And so, you know, there's power in numbers, like you had mentioned before.
Right.
So we definitely feel very strongly about being together. So we'll see how that goes. Yeah.
As an introvert, I'm just like, because I'm alone. Once again, I've kind of mailed it in. I mean, not mailed it in like I'm an old guy and don't do anything, but to me it's like, well, I have goals, and now I'm 34, so I'm not a fossil. But it's about legacy building for me now, right? Yeah. So like now I've mailed it in the sense that I'm not trying to do like the vacation-y stuff, or I'm not trying to do all that. And now it's about what I can leave these guys, how I can leave it to them, and then what I can teach them. Mm-hmm. So I have this like little hobby that I do. I don't even know if you could call it, but this practice that I do is the best way, is where every single day I write a letter to a different person in my family. Oh. They're not supposed to read them. I don't know when they read them, which is the ironic part. They can never find them. But to me, in my mind, is like, at the very least, I can leave a recorded record of my thoughts. My lessons, right? Like the things that I want to teach them, and then hopefully, if I'm not here, they can find comfort in those letters.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, it is. But it's half-ass ended because of that. Because it's like, well, if they don't know that they exist,
you gotta leave it in your will and let them know.
I haven't even got talking about thinking ahead. I haven't even thought about it. Well,
oh no.
Before. Yeah. Yeah. Plus, I think most of us are in denial about death, right?
Yeah.
Like I hate to compare this to like the bridge experience. It's completely different, but the same in that you never think it's going to happen. No. Yeah, you kind of just live life like as, I'll do it again tomorrow.
Yeah.
I'll do it again tomorrow.
And who wants to prepare for that? I don't want to prepare for that, but you have to prepare for that.
Oh, I was about to say,
this is a crazy thing.
I do Stoic philosophy, and they're really big. Actually, I wrote a book. It's around here somewhere, and one of the chapters is about meditating on your mortality. And it shouldn't be a scary thing. It is at first. But it's more of what I call an ignition, right? It's one of those things where it's like, every second that passes is owned by death. You can't do anything about that but push forward. Yep. Right? And then we shouldn't be racing to this like nothing. We should actually be enjoying it all the way there, so that when we get to that goal line, we could go at peace. Yeah. And then I read a lot of stories about, they do surveys on older people and stuff, and it's like, it's always, I regret I didn't do this. I regret I didn't spend time with my kids. I regret all that stuff. And that's because they thought that they would never get there. Yep. They just kept living, and they're like, oh, I'll get to my son or daughter tomorrow. It's fine. It goes in the blink.
You got to do it now.
You got to do it.
You can't let time go by.
And you got to face it.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's uncomfortable sometimes,
Absolutely.
like those, it's not always peaches and cream and like a fun thing, but like some things are necessary. And if you don't do it now, you're never going to do it later. And you never know when life takes a turn, and then you're not able to do those things, Right. But like, I think of it in the way of like, eventually my time is going to be up, and I like to think of it in the way of what am I leaving behind?
Right.
What impact can I make for my son, for my family and the younger generations, for the community, for my neighbors?
Yeah. That's awesome.
Like for anyone, someone that I can inspire, like I want to be able to leave something behind that, can hopefully make other people to add to that impact and to those changes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's powerful. It's powerful.
Yeah.
And it's a big mission. But I saw in the form that you put, how you approach goals, but you take them little by little.
Yeah.
You want to talk more about goals? I think my listeners love talking about goals. Shout out to the listeners. But
cool.
How do you go about it?
When I saw that question, I was like, damn, I never have really thought about and listening back to I listened to Fernando's podcast episode, and I was like, damn, Fernando's so organized.
Shout out to Fernando.
Shout out to Fernando. He just got to El Salvador, which is really dope. Yeah. Yay. But I've never had, I guess, set things that I do. I'm all over the place with my bedtime, and I'm very just a free-spirited type of person. But the one things that I do, or the few things I should say that I do, I also like to keep a sketch, or kind of like a journal, but it's really a sketchbook. Okay. But I do write in there a lot too. I write in my phone a lot, in my notes. That's something I've been doing for years. It's just I can be, when I was living in Boston, taking the train, the bus, whatever, I would see things around me would inspire me, and I would get ideas, and I'm like, oh, I need to jot that down. Nice. Or I would have certain feelings and emotions, and I'm like, I need to write this out. I need to be able to process them and think about them and come back to them later. Yeah. And so those things have really been helpful for me. And so when I do these things where I'm writing in my notes, I like to pair it with my sketchbook, where I'm able to bring those ideas to life, or bring those feelings to life, and kind of map them out, create a plan for them, how I visualize them, being real. Yeah. So without that, I feel like it's so easy for me to lose ideas. Yeah. And I have so many times when I've forgotten to type them in when I'm driving or something. For sure. And even when I'm driving, which I shouldn't be doing, I'll be doing voice notes. Voice notes. And I'm like, oh, I shouldn't be doing this right now, but this is such a good idea. I can't let it go. I don't know. My parents would always tell me, tú tus ideas, you always have these ideas. And I'm like, I guess I have a vivid imagination. I like creating experiences. Right. So I always like to, jot everything down. Yeah. I need to document it, because I feel like if I'm documenting it, can always look back to it, and it has to come back. It has to come to life if I'm looking back at it. Super cool. Yeah. Yeah. I
like that philosophy behind it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you keep it, and I mean, God forbid anything happens. I'm not religious, but you know what I mean.
No, I know what you mean.
Yeah. Well, that's also a recorded document that you can leave to your son.
Yeah.
And be able to, and that's incredible too, that he'll be able to see your work and see your emotions and see your. So it's journaling in a sense, just in a dynamic way, like in a 3D way. Yeah.
Yep.
That's super cool, yeah.
Definitely.
I try to tell people all the time when they are having a hard time, and it seems counterproductive to them because they don't want to dwell in the reason they're having a hard time. But that's my first go-to. It's do you have a journal? Most people are just I don't. I sit down. I can't get more than one sentence. That's okay.
Yeah.
Get that one sentence out.
Yeah.
Think about it. Reflect on it, and keep it moving.
That one sentence was needed.
Yeah. I call it emptying the catch. Is what I call it. I'm like, look, computers run really fast until they get a lot of catch. Yeah. And then when they have a lot of catch built up, they need to unload it. And you need to reset the catch, or you're going to have a sluggish computer.
Yeah, yep.
I think about my mind in that same exact way. It's definitely. If I don't unload it, I'm going to be sluggish. Yeah. I'm going to be thinking sluggish. And I agree. I do forget a bunch of stuff. Yeah. Right there. Yeah, a bunch of great ideas. Yeah, that's super cool. I have to highlight, and shout out to you before I even say what I'm about to say, because my wife went through it. I want to ask you how last year COVID was for you, not specifically as an artist, a creator, but as a mother and a full-time worker, a 9-to-5 worker. How was last year for you?
Yeah, that was what a wild ride. Looking back, it's been a year.
Yeah.
Really, being, in this Zoom world and having to change the way that we've been living. Yeah. It was so weird. He had to go into having online classes, and at his school, it wasn't every single day. I think the teachers were trying to figure out how to use technology and make it work. So he was lucky enough where they were just sending videos.
Cool.
and so he would have to watch them and then like do the assignments or whatever. So it was kind of like on our time. But when they did have like Zoom classes and they were all on at the same time, it was hard. Me being in 101 meetings, that was exhausting.
Yeah.
Super exhausting. And him being in his meetings and him being like, Mom, I need help in this. I need to do this. And I'm like, shh, don't talk. I'm in a meeting. Can't say anything. And
that's terrible.
Oh, yeah. And at the time, we were living with my mom. And, you know, she's also in the house. And so she didn't have to do Zoom or anything because where she worked just closed down for those few months in the beginning. And so she was home and, like, she was being loud and, you know, like just living.
Yep.
And my brother was home. And so it was like a lot of, there was too much stimulation.
Yeah.
I was a mess internally. And I remember having to tell my team a lot of the times, like, I need to step out for a moment. Like, this is hard. Yeah, like I'm having trouble concentrating.
Yeah.
And thankfully I work with amazing people. And they were able to make space or like give suggestions and even offer to like help my son with like certain assignments and stuff. So that was really cool. Yeah. But it definitely was not easy. It was not a piece of cake.
Yeah. No, that's why I salute you ladies. I work in a hospital, so I'm essential personnel. So I didn't skip a beat. Like I've been working all the way through it, whatever. So I always praise my wife and I praise, moms because it's like, I could tell my wife was like not falling apart. She's a strong woman, but you know what I mean. It was like she was losing her damn mind.
She's home with 4.
She's home with 4. And
God bless her.
Yeah, and they all had to do that Zoom meeting stuff, and then my youngest is autistic, so it's like she kind of got to sit with him, like right. You can't just let him kind of roll. And then she had to do her day job, and she had to do that, and she's she's a businesswoman. She does the baking stuff, so she had to like. It was just. I felt, I did my best to accommodate her and make her feel her best, but it was also like damn, salute to you. Like I like in my mind, I was just looking at my wife, and I do every day. She is a champion. Yeah. And I always like to ask if I could get a mom.
Shout out to all the parents and guardians out there.
Absolutely, who had to like completely change their lives upside down and be teacher, be mom, be parent. Yeah, it's super crazy. Yeah. So how do you feel a year later? How do you feel this is going? And I asked that because I kind of feel lately that this is now going long enough to where it's becoming harmful rather than helpful. But I want to hear your take on it. How do you feel we're doing a year later, as a country, as a state, whatever?
I don't know. I don't know if I foresee us not wearing masks anytime soon. I feel like that's probably going to be a thing that we're always going to have to do for a while. But like, from the beginning of this, and I still feel this way because it's real, is I think about like the implications it's going to have in the future for our young people and just, adults in general, being stuck at home, being glued to the computer or the phone, not socializing. Like I think of like young little babies like in preschool. They haven't had the opportunity to be in a real classroom. Right.
And how dependent they are on facial expressions. Yes. Like if you take a half a face away and you just got the eyeballs, it's hard for a kid to figure out am I in trouble or are they happy? Are they sad? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh no, I was just gonna say I think about that. I wonder how we're gonna be like 30 years from now.
Yeah. Like damaged. Yeah. And that's what I mean. I think the longer it goes, like, look, whether I believe what I believe or whatever, I'm a respectful individual, right? So if I need to wear a mask, I will wear a mask, all that good stuff or whatever. Yeah. But like you, what I've always thought about from the very beginning is they just eliminated a whole year of my 9-year-old at the time. She's about to be 10, life. Yeah. Like she won't be around her friends. She, like you said, she's literally just doing classroom in bed. Yeah. Like we would tell them to get dressed just so they could feel the difference. Yeah. And now getting them back to normal life just seems extremely difficult because they've already kind of geared themselves to do it the way they've been doing it for a year. And that's what I think. I think, when states have to govern the way they have to govern, but if there's actual proof out there that we can kind of open up and do it the right way, we need to hard go towards that and not be on what we were doing a year ago, which is just kind of making up numbers if you think about it. I mean, I'm not saying people didn't lose their lives. What I'm saying is is that there was a lot of like blurry mess in that whole thing, right? Like what the hospitals would claim a COVID death was. Just crazy things like that. So it's like now we're getting more to the point where it's like it's less blurry and it's more obvious. You got states like Florida, you got states like Texas, these places that have been open for quite some time, and they do have COVID cases because it's not imaginary. The thing exists.
It's real.
But they are showing that you can do this, and business owners can still have their businesses, and people can still function normally and not be a pandemic. And then I feel like states like us, like Massachusetts, are not doing a terrible job, but are not taking the bull by the horn and saying, hey, we got to get these businesses open. We got to get these people open. So it's damaging, like you said, to adults, to business owners, people that have, like our parents are hard workers. A lot of our parents went on to have businesses, and they get taken away overnight. And then the stupid rules to have them open back up. It's just weird to me because since day one, I didn't have a problem going into Walmart. I didn't have a problem shopping from Amazon. All that stuff was pumping. All that stuff was great, but I couldn't go support my favorite Spanish shop and buy some Spanish food.
Yeah.
Very strange to me. Back then I was okay. Okay, let's ride this thing out. Let's ride curve the wave.
Now you're thinking about it. You're like, what?
Now I'm like, they done stole a year of our life. And like you said with the mask, they don't look like they're going to give it back anytime soon.
Yeah.
So that I do like to bring up the COVID and hear people's examples because I get back and forth. I get the empathetic side, which I am empathetic. I don't want people to die, and especially older people. That's but I also think there's a trade-off between at what expense. And as the time goes by, the expense gets greater because these kids continue to lose this ability to socialize, to do what they're supposed to do, and the adults are not able to structure their life.
Yeah. I hope we can find ways to repair all of that. I'm just thinking we need to.
I don't know. Because then the problem, Vanessa, lies in the fact that, and all my listeners are going to be like, oh, here goes Jose. It's that, the only way you can actually fix it is by creating more money, which in turn hurts us, the bottom 45%, more. Because what happens when you print more money, and in case you didn't know, is inflation happens.
Yeah.
And nobody can tell you that inflation is not happening. And unfortunately, because of COVID, we've gotten 10 years worth of inflation in one, with the amount of money that they printed for the stimulus and stuff like that.
Oh.
A lot of families needed the stimulus, but we also know the reports and the stories that a lot of this money was wasted to people who didn't need it. Now, what happens is inflation goes up. Guess what happens to us, the 9-to-5 workers? Rent goes up.
Yeah.
The stuff we buy for our kids goes up. The services we consume. Netflix goes up every $2 every 6 months, it seems like. Right? So what happens is the richer continue to do what they do because they don't pay taxes, they have loopholes, and then us, we pay the inflation. We pay that tax because then it becomes harder for us to live.
Yeah.
And our 9-to-5 isn't going to give us 10 years worth of inflation as a raise. They're going to give us a quarter.
Yeah.
Cost of living raise, as they call it. Well, I don't know where you guys are basing this cost of living number, but it's not a quarter. I'm going to need a lot more. And that's the problem with this continuing COVID longer. And the Biden administration is talking about doing another one. A lot of people are excited about that, but I also think people, especially in our culture and from where we grew up, don't know nothing about money.
Yeah.
And if you knew about money, you would understand that this is a scary situation, and we've never seen anything like it.
Yeah.
If you succeed in your businesses and you're kind of capitalistic, you may succeed. But if you try to work 9-to-5, you're just going to wear yourself away. You're going to melt like an ice cube at your job.
Yeah.
And when you get to your retirement, they debase the currency so much that now your $100,000 in your 401k has the buying power of $40,000. That's a shitty system.
Yeah.
It's a Ponzi scheme, you see? So this is why I go on this tangent about we need to understand what it is that we're asking of leadership. And we need to understand that if they're giving us this money, they may be trying to I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but they may be trying to keep you distracted from what's really happening. And most people just want money.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you noticed a coincidence. Stimulus came in. We happened to be doing groceries the next day up at Walmart. TVs were lined up and down the thing because minorities like us and people that don't know about money get our stimulus checks and we go buy the flat screen TV. Because since we were young, we had to be cooler than the neighbor. Right? We needed to have a bigger TV. Your parents need to have a better house. You needed to have better sneakers, right?
Yeah, you're like, this is my chance of getting that one thing that I've been wanting, but I haven't been able to afford, so I'm going to go get it.
Yeah, yeah.
instead of like saving it. And there are people that do save it, and but there are people who are like, damn, but I need this because this is gonna entertain my kids.
Yeah, the delayed gratification. Have you heard about the marshmallow test?
No.
Yeah, marshmallow test. I don't know the years or the exact, so I'll kind of just run through it really fast. Yeah, they did it on kids.
Oh, okay.
And they were basically saying, hey, here's one marshmallow.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Cool, right. So that test kind of just shows that,
yeah.
Where we come from, we're not trusting that we're going to get that second marshmallow.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to eat that first one.
Yeah.
1,000%. But that's a problem because wealthy people, and I'm not going to put color on them. They could be white, they could be whatever, because wealth comes in all colors.
Mm-hmm.
Wealthy people knew one thing: how to delay gratification and how to buy assets.
Mm.
When I was growing up, nobody around me knew this because we wanted I was in the generation of dudes that whenever somebody stepped on our boots, we couldn't clean them. We had to go get brand new Timberlands.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was that guy. Or the white Air Force Ones. No, don't step on my sneakers.
Yeah.
Like, right? And now I come to see that how stupid that was, right?
Yeah.
But it was like an unconscious programming.
Mm-hmm.
Like the community I was in, it wasn't a coincidence that all our parents worked in the same places. All the kids went to the same school, and we all knew the same thing, right? So while people were getting wealthy, delaying gratification, we were buying Timberlands, Air Forces, Hondas with rims, speakers, right? Like we were doing this type of stuff. And when I go into the conversation of racism and those things like that, I think of it more as an how can I put this so it's not as weird as I want to make it weird. It's like an algorithm, right? So it's like, based on where you came from and where you stand, society kind of has this default set for you.
Yeah.
So long story short, the system doesn't have to be purposely racist. It's just orchestrated to be racist.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if we spent more energy focused on this orchestration and less energy at pointing at racist, I think we could get a lot more accomplished, is my point that I'm trying to make. And it starts with knowing wealth, knowing self-worth.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that purposely was taken away from our communities. They don't want us to know
institutionalized racism is real. Yeah.
Yeah. But see, a lot of people are under the impression that it's overt, right? And some of it is, I'm sure. A lot of it is. But a lot of people are under the impression that it's like, the guy who owns that company is purposely trying to be. And I'm like, no. It's the rules that he plays by are already set to be racist. Yep. He doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that goes lost. But I think once people start realizing how to build wealth, how to buy assets and things like that. But the second part of that is self-worth, because one of my favorite tangents to go on is us Latinos, we have the sauce. Like we're cool just because we're cool, right? Like, and me and my wife joke around all of that. And the whiter people are more like the mayonnaise, right? Like it's, you put it on some sandwich, it's kind of cool, but it's not the sauce.
That's so funny.
Yeah. So I use that analogy, not because I don't love my white people. I love y'all. Y'all great. I use that analogy because it's true. And only if we know we have the sauce can we take advantage of it. And I don't mean advantage of it like being, mischievous. I mean just like what you do, like getting art out into the world and having that creativity that can only come from you, only can come from your background and what you have. But we're not. We talked about it in the beginning of this conversation. We don't care about ourselves like that.
And sometimes we, think life experiences make it so that sometimes you don't see the worth in yourself and you don't think that you're good enough or that you're able to, be in this, have the same opportunities as other people that have more privilege than you. Right. And so, oh my goodness, I lost my train of thought. Where was I going with that?
Yeah, no, it's just us knowing what we bring to the table.
Oh yeah. So I mean, I'm 30 years old and it wasn't, I wasn't fully secure in myself at an early age. It took 30 years for me to be able to grow year by year and to be able to see I can do these things. Yeah. I'm going to make my own opportunity and I'm going to share it with everyone around myself. And so, I spend a lot of time thinking about that little girl who used to just draw and sit at home. And, there's other little girls like that too that want spaces where they can create and see other artists and be inspired by them. So why not make that space a real thing?
Love that.
you know, for all the generations.
Yeah, I mean, and that's how the first step for, you know, especially little girls like my daughter, to see their self-worth, right?
Yeah.
And to see that somebody like them can actually pull this off too.
Yes.
And yeah, that's definitely what I'm shifting into. They've done basic stuff, like my daughter has done like gymnastics and stuff like that. And that's all fantastic.
Yeah.
It's not bad, but it's not her, right? Like the little girl that's in front of the camera that wants to do videos and sings all the songs doesn't care about the balance beam. So yeah, it's an inspiration. I can't wait to try to plug her into what you guys are going. Even if I just come just so she can watch you guys do what you guys do.
Yeah.
I think my little girl will love what you guys do.
And if I find anything else, I'll definitely share it with you. I know there's things out there.
Please.
Definitely. Now everything's coming out of the woodworks now in Worcester. So
yeah.
Finally. Just good, right?
It
you
is.
know?
It took a lot. It sounds
we
like
got to take advantage to get our kids in there. And,
yeah.
You know, if it's accessible and it's not super expensive, then, you know.
Yeah, pass the torch.
Yeah, definitely.
Because, you know, you look across the board, music, the culture, hip-hop is probably the greatest thing ever, right? And you just go across the board, anything. And that's what backs up the sauce comment, is like, you name whatever niche you want to name, and the people of culture or of any culture have done it better and done it amazing. And it's the greatest movie or the greatest song and that's not to say that, you know, the generic European, like you said earlier, a white person does not have cool stuff. It's just there's a reason why they're willing to pay us to do it, because they may not be capable of it.
Yeah, you know, it's like, it's hard, I think, for an outsider to try to be able to replicate what the person on the inside naturally knows how to do. And that goes for anyone in any situation, you know. So it's important, I think, to recognize, oh, that person knows how to do that. We need to bring them and have them be a part of this team and to be able to be a part of the story that we're creating. Yeah. And whatever it is, whatever this organization or thing is.
I do like when they do, you know, when that happens, when it's like, hey, we don't know how to do this. Let's bring the people that know how to do it to do it. Also a small room for extortation, though, or am I using the right word there? But what I mean is, if the people coming in don't know their self-worth, they could easily be bought out. And that's another tangent that I go on all the time. I go on many tangents. That's why I have a show. But it's that if we don't know our self-worth, I have this thing where, you know, this example of somebody came up to me and said, well, if Spotify comes up to you and says, hey, we'll pay $10 million for the podcast, would you do so? No. And people think I'm bugging because I'm in my basement, and they're like, why the hell wouldn't you take $10 million? And I'm like, well, because I know my worth. I know the worth of my audience. And if they're giving me $10 million, I must be worth 8 times more than that. But that train of thinking only happens when you realize your self-worth. Yeah.
And like, who knows? Maybe they're going to try to change things, you know, to benefit them. And it's not the story or what you're trying to preserve and create for your podcast and for your listeners.
But they don't tell you till after. Yeah. And that's when you get screwed. Yeah. And then we just end up being the grumpy minority. Right? Like we're upset at something real. Hey, you didn't tell me this when we signed up with you. But you're always going to come off as, he's just complaining because he's victim blaming himself or whatever the hell people say. But that's something that I always try to impact with this show. I have a podcast network where I have a few great creators that are doing podcasts under the network. Yeah. And that's what I try to champion. It's like, look, it's, you know, I do these shows for free. There's no money coming into the show. Podcasts usually don't make much money. But I keep telling them, keep it up. Because the people who are following you, they're going to want to donate to you. They're going to want to help you out. They want to keep hearing these conversations.
There is at least one person that keeps listening because they honestly love it. And you're inspiring them. Exactly. And you can, you know, get them to get up and want to create and take charge of their dreams as well. Right. You know, as big or as small, like, you know, it doesn't matter. It's a dream. It's something that you're passionate about and you want to do. So yeah.
So how would that person feel if I took $10 million and Spotify changed the story? And the show that they were listening to now became this other show that's like edited. And see, I think about the listeners. I think about, you know, my self-worth. And I think about, you know, this wasn't by accident. I didn't just pick this stuff up. I put hours into this. I put a lot of my family's finances into this, right? So it's like, there's no company in the world that can come and cheat. Yeah. And basically say, well, we're going to say, but you're worth this much. Yeah. I refuse to take that. This is one of those things. But people think I'm lying. We'll see.
Even for like El Salón, like I think it took a lot for me and friends to be able to be open to like looking for grants or help from other bigger corporations or institutions that give money, just because we don't want to compromise our mission and our vision and what we're creating.
Right.
And sometimes that does happen, and we don't want that to happen. But, when the opportunity has been right, like now, partnering with the JMAC and having this residency, it felt right. It felt what we're working towards and what we want to create is being valued.
Yeah.
So you just have to be, wise about it.
Yeah,
I think,
absolutely. Yeah. And,
never compromise.
and be at the table too. I like to
Yes.
tell people that too. Don't be the guy that's over there in the corner while the deal's happening and you're not there.
Yeah, you make a place for yourself at the table.
Love that. Love that. Listeners, that's awesome gem advice. All right.
Yeah.
So in respect to your time, there's 15 minutes left to the hour and a half or whatever. Let's talk about El Salón real quick and any upcoming stuff you want to tell the listeners about or anything you're excited about that you can say, of course. I know you want to keep it on the low. But so where they can find you, any of that stuff.
So viewers and listeners, right?
Both, hopefully, if this camera doesn't shut off.
Yeah. Viewers and listeners can find us on Instagram at _L_Salón_.
Yeah.
And that's spelled ELSALON.
I'll put it in the description too.
Yes. Yep. And so, we're very excited about this. Let me start again.
Yeah.
We're very excited about this residency at the JMAC. And, I know I sent you everything we've done up until now. And I was like, oh, shoot, this is a lot. I hope that he doesn't mind. But we want to be able to continue to manifest what we've created at the bridge here in this, fancy gallery space and theater space, which is super cool. Like I can't sit here and be like, it's not cool. It is very cool.
Yeah.
I am in love with the theater that they have there. And so at El Salón, or for El Salón's residency, we proposed a project called Take Space, where we're going to take space in these
literally.
Institutionalized settings, right? Like we're bringing our community and we're going to take over.
I love that.
And I love that we're being invited in, and Hank and Olivia are amazing. Hank runs the pop-up, and Olivia runs the brick box, and they are just the sweetest, and it just feels right. It feels sincere.
Sweet.
And so we have a couple events that we have lined up, I think about 4 or 5 of them, which is why I said we're a bit ambitious, because we have only 8 weeks to do all this, right? All the planning, all the promotion, call to artists. But one of the events we'll be starting off with will be an art exhibit. And we have a call to artists, so please take a look at the link in our bio at El Salón's Instagram page to apply to that.
Put that for sure.
Yes. And so another thing that we're doing in order to use that big, beautiful theater, there is a community theater group called Salón, and it's a Spanish-speaking theater group, and they are working on this beautiful play about the Mirabel sisters from DR. Okay. And so they've been working since the summer last year during COVID. They started off virtually, and now they're in-person meeting.
Nice.
And so they are set to have that show, or the opening show, in November, but they will be using the theater at the Brick Box to do their weekly practices, which I'm so excited about. And they'll be doing a couple scenes from the play as like a sneak preview at one of our events. So I'm very excited about that. So some of the other things that we'll be doing besides the art exhibits is we're hoping to have a performance night where we have different performing artists and
dope.
Musicians come down.
Certain age groups or?
No, El Salón, I feel very passionate about it being intergenerational.
Nice.
And so we're going to have those and some other things that I don't want to disclose yet, but just follow along the journey. It's going to be super cool. So we're very excited to implement everything that falls under what is considered art, right?
Yeah.
And that can be theater and dance and visual arts and writing, podcasting, cool, you name it, whatever. So there's a lot of things coming up.
Yeah, you guys are killing it. I'm excited about that. Now, you before we move on, from the very beginning, you talk about we. You work with a team.
Yes.
Shout out to them. I was gonna ask what advice would you give for working in a group setting, right? Because I've gotten into new exposures with this podcast and new situations where I got to work with people I've never worked with, and I wouldn't say bumping heads, but it's definitely weird. And I don't know if it's me, if it's us, or whatever. So what would you give advice to me or to anybody listening on working with other people?
So I think with, like I'm blessed in the way that El Salón and the group in El Salón that I work with are all my friends.
Okay.
And I've had the privilege of being able to meet them through work and in the community already. So nice. I've developed relationships with them that way. But I feel like if you don't know people, the important thing to do is to get to know them and build those relationships with them so that working with them can be, it could be tricky, but I think it'll better your understanding of that person. Yeah. But that's thankfully, good advice, I work with people that are inspiring to me. And not only are they inspiring to me, but they really have pushed me to believe in myself, and they've seen and valued me from the beginning. Nice. When I probably didn't value myself or see myself the way that they do. Yeah. And I always had this vision of having El Salón. And that's why I think before I had mentioned, like, it was conceived before, the bridge, because I had carried that desire, that want, the idea to be able to have a space where community comes together and, shares their skills and ideas with one another, and you're able to network and collaborate with one another. So I always carried that, and I would talk about it with my friends, and I like to surround myself with people that inspire me. Yeah. And push me, make me feel uncomfortable for good reasons, Yeah. And so I would share those ideas with them, and they really believed in them. And that's why they're a part of the story of El Salón as well. Nice. It wouldn't be possible without them. Yeah. So
now, do you guys have bump heads on like final decisions, like on projects, or is it just everybody usually cool with? Yeah.
So up until now, recently, where we had to like really organize ourselves for this residency, we've never been really like super organized. Yeah. It has been a lot of me spearheading everything. Yeah. And so I always check in with one friend, check in with another friend. They're like, yeah, that's cool. Yeah, you should do that. Or I have a suggestion or whatever. Yep. And we help ourselves in that way. So they've always have just trusted my vision. Nice. And if they have seen something they don't like, they'll be like, Vanessa, what about this or that? And I'm like, you're right. Thank you for pointing that out. Nice. But now we're much more, we're like, it feels, I would always just call them my friends. Now it's like we are a board. So it feels a little bit more official and boring, but we're not. But we have become much more organized now that we are. Yeah.
This shit getting done now.
Yeah. Now it's not like, oh, this is like a fun, side project that we're doing. And it's like, no, like,
it's a movement.
Yeah, this is growing. Yeah. We have to, we have to take care of it. So
love that. Yeah. All right. So before we sign off, I've been asking, and I plan to ask every guest at the very end one question: how do you handle fear?
How do I handle fear? Yeah. Oh, that's a good question.
That's why I'm signing off every episode with it, because everybody needs to learn how to overcome.
With this one question?
Every person I have. That's the last question. Yeah.
That's the last question.
Because I think it's something we all share.
Yeah.
It's fear. So I like to hear how people do it.
Interesting. Yeah. I think the way I've mostly have handled fear is just knowing that I'm bigger than it, I guess. Yeah. Because when you're scared in the moment, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so scared. This is going to swallow me. Yeah. I can't. And I think that is all well and true. You have those feelings, but then there's a moment of realization of like, nope, I need to shake that off. Yeah. I'm bigger than that. This is not going to overcome me. Love it. I'm going to overcome it. So I think for me, it's just like remembering like, this is nothing. As hard as certain things may be, yeah, which can, there's so many things that could be awful. Yeah. But I think that, there is that moment where you're like, no, I'm not going to let this defeat me. Love it. I'm going to move forward. I'm going to step over it. Yeah. So yeah, I was trying to imagine the little girl in me, like, how did I handle being scared? And it's just at one point you were like, no, you get over it. Yeah.
Yeah. I try a bunch of different things, but one that really works for me is I just try to like literally tell myself. So worst case scenario is I'm back here with my wife and my kids.
Yeah.
That's literally like, I got to go to this, big important interview. Oh, I got to do an interview. Oh, well, at the worst that can happen is I'm embarrassed in the moment, and then I go home and I'm with my wife and my kids.
Yeah.
And it's all normal.
You're surrounded by people you love.
Exactly.
And that love you.
So if worst case scenario is going back to that, I win every time.
That's not bad.
Yeah.
That's not bad at all.
That's a good one. Yeah. So, Vanessa, I really appreciate your time. I love everything that you got going on. And it makes me feel much needed connected to the city. Yeah. And I'm just inspired because I'm not as selfless as you are to be doing everything that you're doing for the community. Mm-hmm. I want to be in my mind, but I'm not taking the action. And when I talk to people like you that are taking the action, it's truly inspirational. Mm-hmm. The fact that my daughters could look up to females like you who are strong, who are spearheaded and are going, it's always wild to me. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for your words. I appreciate that.
Yeah. All right, we'll talk soon.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. Later. Thanks for joining me for another great conversation. As always, I hope you guys got a lot out of that. I'm always intrigued to learn from people like Vanessa because it's hard to strike a balance between being able to selflessly give your time up for others and being able to be productive for yourself. And I always am intrigued with people that can do both like Vanessa. As always, guys, if you enjoyed this podcast, please rate, share, and subscribe. That's how I'll continue to have the conversations I love to have, and you can continue to get the conversations you love to listen to. As always, guys, take care. Later. This was a Spotlight Coalition podcast. If you want more podcasts like this, please head on over to spotlightcoalition.com/podcast. These podcasts are not possible without contributions from great people in the audience, such as yourself that's listening right now. If you feel like contributing to me or any of the other creatives on the network, please head on over to spotlightcoalition.com/podcast. Give them a listen and check out their QR codes to be able to support them directly. If you're on the Lightning Network, then you can hear us and stream sats to us value for value with the podcast index. We appreciate y'all.